Hello, thanks for watching this Accela University video on the topic of working with spaces in the Oxygen user interface. My name is Thomas Strauss and I will show you the following features: viewing and adding spaces, pinning, unpinning, and closing spaces, and finally navigating list spaces. Let's get started by logging into the Civic platform. Now that I've logged into the Civic platform, notice on the left side of the page you have the main menu, which is a blue column, and there's an upper section and a lower section. So in the upper section I have the Launchpad, I have Global Search, and I have the dashboards, the task dashboard, and also a slide out here gives me access to the map dashboard. These are all static, they can't be moved, and they don't change. Now in the lower portion of the main menu, I have one tile showing for the record space. And space or spaces is an abbreviation for workspace. And these are also referred to as pages as well. So any data item that you open or any page will create a tile here on the main menu. So if I go to my Launchpad and let's say that I click on the inspections page or space, you can see that it opens that space and it creates a tile with an icon there on the main menu. Now as I hover my cursor over the top of the inspections tile or button, sometimes it's referred to, you'll see that there's a thumbtack in the left corner. And if I click on that, it will allow me to pin this to the main menu. On the right, there is a close option. Closing a tile not only closes that space or that page, but it also unpins it. So if you'd previously pinned a page or space, and then you close it, it closes and unpins it. So if I go back to my Launchpad, if I were to open multiple pages, such as my task, or possibly task management, you can see that it's creating a list of tiles here. And for each of these that I want to pin and retain for future use, I can click on pin, and then my option changes to unpin. If I go to the next one and pin that as well, and another, pinning that. This goes for pages as well as other data items. If I navigate to my recently viewed, I could click on a contact, and that opens up that data item and creates a tile. So this would go for your standard Accela pages, as well as data items like records or contacts or say an inspection. If I navigate to inspection, and it will create a tile for that inspection, and that could be pinned. Now you can see that after a number of these have been added, that at some point you're going to run out of room. And so if I add another page here, it creates a tile that says more, and it has the ellipsis symbol, the 3 dots, and you can always click on that to expand and see additional spaces. Your limitation here is to have 20 open spaces, and you do have a numbered count. So when you do click on more, it opens, it shows you where you're at. I have 7 open spaces. And this allows you to keep track of how many you've got at any given time. And again, you're limited to 20. If you were to attempt to open more than 20, you would get a pop-up banner at the top of the page that would alert you to the fact that you're out of spaces and you need to remove some in order to make room for additional spaces or pages that you may have need to add. All right, so pinning and unpinning can be done by clicking on the thumbtack, and to close you can just click on close, which unpins it as well. Now I'm going to reopen one of these, and show you that any item that you pin remains for your next login session, and it's retained. So that could be records, contacts, professionals that you've pinned to the main menu. It could be pages such as your record space or inspections. And in this case, I'll add another, let's say the addresses space or page. So this is the address lookup, and I'm going to pin that. And originally when I logged in for this session, I only had record as my pinned home page. And so I'm going to log out. So signing out and then signing back in. And as soon as I get signed back in, you can see that addresses, my task, inspections, these are all pages that I just pinned in the last session. And those are now retained. I logged out and then logged back in. So that is how viewing and adding spaces works. And then pinning, unpinning, and closing are all options for these. All right, so if I navigate back into my pages, any of these that I click on or any of the recently opened data items can all be added here on the left. Now, sometimes users want these in a specific order. And one thing you should know is that there is not a capability to say drag and drop these tiles into a different order. If I want them in a specific order, then I need to close these and add them in the order that I want to see them. And each item that gets added will be added underneath the one above it. Now, that's true except in the case of the record space. If the record space has been saved as your home page, which I have done, then it will always appear at the top of the list regardless of where you added it below. Any of these other pages, though, that you might choose to make your home page, those will add in the list where you've put them. So if I no longer make record my home page and I take that off, and let's say I choose my task to be my home page. When I select that, it will retain my task in the place where I put it. Also, I would mention that any page that's been pinned as and selected as your home page, it does not show a thumbtack like the others do. So any of these others that have been pinned, I get the option to unpin it. I can see a thumbtack, and that is true except when a page has been selected as your home page, you don't see a thumbtack there. If you close it, or if you go back in here to Launchpad and you click on the home symbol, it will clear that. So if I want to make record my home page again, which I do, I'll just click on that and record is now my home page. So the only one that, if it's your home page, will not appear in the order you've placed it is record. Record will always appear just under the Launchpad at the top of the list of spaces. Now, when you're working with a list page, such as the record page, the inspections is also a list page. These list pages, any of the records or data items that you're working with, if you were to right-click on the link, you could open it in a separate tab or in a separate window. And if you do want to work with multiple tabs for records, multiple inspections, or other data items, it's recommended that you use spaces, because spaces act kind of like a browser tab, and that's really their design and their function. So if you wanted to open multiple records, I could click on a record. You'll notice that it creates a tab or a tile for that record. If I go back to record again, I click on the next one, and that also appears on the main menu. And I could continue to open up multiple records, and they would be multiple tiles shown up to 20, as mentioned, is the limit. And that's recommended rather than opening them in separate tabs. For the Excella Civic platform, it's recommended that you have a single tab open, and that if you want multiple records or data items open, that you use spaces, as shown here, for that purpose rather than having multiple tabs, as you'll have a better performance with the system that way. Okay, so that wraps it up for this video on working with spaces. Okay, at this point you should be familiar with how to view and add spaces, how to pin, unpin, or close spaces, and also how to work with list spaces. Thanks for watching.